Hello, and welcome to Musings from the Mystics. I'm Marnie.
And I'm Natalie. We are your guides on this crazy and sometimes tumultuous journey we call the human experience.
Each episode will share our musings about the current energetic climate,
how we're navigating these times,
and tips to help you get the most out of your journey.
So join us to be awakened, empowered,
and expand into conscious action.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of Musings from the Mystics. We are going to be discussing Stages of Ascension. And Marnie has some information for us that was provided by her guides that they felt was very important to share. So that's why we're dropping in with this special edition.
Yes, even though it is on our regular day.
This is true.
So this is information that isn't necessarily from my guides, but my guide said, you need to organize this so that people can begin to understand what this process is. And so over the last few days, I've been sort of accumulating and trying to make sense of it in a way that I can explain it to other people, because you hear it a lot. If you're on social media, if you're listening to this podcast, you're interested in ascension, you're hearing a lot about it. There's a lot of talk about release and move through and let go, but there's not a whole lot about when is this shit gonna end?
Or what does it mean to be awakening?
And so I've accumulated some information, and I think this will be really beneficial in understanding. Now, I can tell you there is not an end date. So let's just get that right out of the way right now. There's not some goal you're trying to achieve. But I do think it's important to understand the process, because it makes it easier when you know it's a cyclical process and it's going to happen again and again. And none of it is permanent. That is the other really important thing. So there are 3 main stages. If you would like to write this information down, it could be really helpful for you. So I recommend pausing and grabbing your journal and a pen so that you can begin to understand it for yourself and how it's working in your life. So here we go. The first stage I'm calling awareness waking up. And what does that entail, right? There's so much talk about, are you awake? Are you woke? Are you, that's the kids' language.
Right.
I think it means the same thing. I'm not sure. But what does that process look like? What does it mean? And I think the reason for kind of dividing these into stages for people is to understand you're not stuck in one forever, and that they move forward. And I also think people have lumped everything into like, I'm waking up and I'm ascended, like these 2 extremes. But there are not just 2 phases. There are 3.
Yes.
In my experience, in our experiences, healers and energy workers and what we're doing and in this field, that it is more accurate. And you could break it down further, but do we need to? I don't think so. I think 3 is good.
3 is good.
3 is a magical number anyway. In awareness and waking up, what does that mean? What does that look like? Things don't feel right. Right?
No.
Things,
what's happening to me?
Right. What's happening to me? What am I doing with my life? Everything feels like it's wrong. And a lot of symptoms of that are dissatisfaction, just generally speaking, dissatisfied, agitation, frustration, anxiety, and a lot of physical symptoms. Because I think really to wake us up, our soul goes, let me cause you some physical problems so you'll pay attention. Right? Now, of course, this isn't a conscious thing of let's hurt you so you'll pay attention, but that is what happens. When energy isn't right and it finally lands because we haven't paid attention to it, and it lands in the body, we have to stop and pay attention.
Yeah. And it can be uncomfortable.
It can be very uncomfortable. Yes.
There is the potential for that. So
just
keep that in mind. Yes.
Discomfort is another sort of symptom of that awareness waking up stage. A desire for thriving versus surviving. I think the majority of the population is in autopilot survival mode. I'm doing the things I was told to do, and I'm doing life in this conditioned way. And how come it's not working? I did what I was told. I'm doing what I'm quote unquote supposed to do. Why isn't it working? And this desire for realizing I'm surviving and this sucks.
Well, and I think another word too, which I don't believe you said the word, but questioning. Like that's a big part of this phase too, is you are going to start to ask questions.
Yes.
Of everyone and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is good. I didn't write that down. That's good. Awareness that there's another way, which plays in with that questioning. This way doesn't seem to be working for me. Is there another way? There must be other ways. How can I do this differently? And of course, we see people, if you're on social media or you have friends who are in the next phase that are doing it differently. And so there becomes this awareness that I don't have to do it like this.
No.
Recognizing that change is needed.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I think that's really important, because if you've been doing all the things you're supposed to be doing and you're not questioning, or you don't recognize that change needs to happen, then you're probably not awake.
No.
Or have an awareness that you want something different, which is totally fine. That can be your path. We're talking to the people who want the ascension path. So there's this recognition that change is needed. Our behavior patterns, our beliefs, our conditioning, how we move through the world needs changing. We may not have the answers as to what needs changing, but we recognize that change is needed.
And you'll get those emotions in there too, that something doesn't feel right. You'll get that gut feeling of talking about these changes, like, oh yeah, I've been doing this way for the past 15 years, but it doesn't feel good anymore. You will get that, like, why the hell am I still doing this?
Why am I an accountant when I hate math?
Right, exactly. And we're not telling you all to go out and quit your jobs. That's not...
I am. Totally go. If it's not making you happy, quit your job.
Yeah, we still need to pay our bills. Right. Like, that's still a reality, regardless of what level of the ascension process you're in. So just beware.
So those are the basic awareness, waking up sort of symptoms and what that stage looks like. Now, having said that, the stages overlap. They are not, okay, now I've done this, next step, which we have this very linear way of being conditioned, that A leads to B, leads to C. That is not actually how life works. That is a conditioning and a pattern that you believe, but it is not true. And we talked about beliefs in a recent podcast, and it's not true. And they interweave, they intermingle. There's an overlapping. There's not a clear on-off switch. Now I'm in this phase. It's more like, oh, okay, now things are starting to shift. Yes. But they overlap. And so what overlaps in the integration, which is step 2, integration, I'm calling it integration and balance stage, is that continually recognizing that change is needed.
Yes, in everything, every day.
Sometimes it feels like that, like everything. I have to blow up my life and start over. If you're feeling that, you're probably in the integration phase. Yes. And that's great. That's great. Then the next symptom is an assimilation of new patterns, behaviors, and beliefs. And what that means is, okay, I recognize that way didn't work. I need to respond, not react, respond in a different way that feels better to me, where I'm wanting to go, how I'm wanting to feel, what I want to think, what I want to believe. So there's this assimilation where you begin to really integrate the information of knowing that didn't work, I got to do something else. What does that look like? And then that sort of interchanges with shifting of thought processes and actions. So one may come before the other, but it doesn't really matter in which way they come. But you begin to, because you're aware, you begin to make choices of doing things differently. So integration is really the integrating of the awareness that you have received previously. This doesn't work. What is the new thing that I need to do? And I think a lot of people kind of think integration looks like, oh, I'm just going to hang out and everything will be cool. And it requires nothing of me. And I'm just going to let it like settle, right? But to me, integration is the most active phase. I think the awareness waking up is the more thought processes, questioning. It's a much more sort of head space oriented, and integration is much more action oriented. It requires us to do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is not a inert or idle phase.
No. Or put your feet up and just say, come on, bring it.
Right.
I would love for it to work that way.
Right. Then there are a lot of symptoms, I think, that we have during this phase. Exhaustion. Mm-hmm. Physical issues. That continues. So we notice that in the awareness phase. As we're releasing things, if it already hit your body, now you have to release that, which means you have to move through that energy moving out. So we can feel that as pain, discomfort in the body in many ways. Digestion issues. Because we carry so much of our world is processed through our digestion. It isn't just food. It's a living microbiome in there. So it's digesting so much. And if you've been carrying a lot of things that do not align with who you want to be, you may experience some digestion things. A lack of energy or more energy. I find I go through
either
both.
way.
Yep. I sort of teeter-totter between the two. One day I'm like, yep, doing nothing. And the next day I'm like, I'm cleaning the entire house. And I have a big house to clean. I'm cleaning the whole house by myself. So there's this shifting of that. Again, this is a balance phase. So we find balance in how we behave. Sleep disruption. This is like a real serious thing. And it can feel like, oh, what do I need to do? And I want to address that in just a moment as I finish these symptoms up. Changes in desires. This includes food, right? If things are not sitting well, you need to change your diet because you're literally energetically changing, and what the food that the body needs is going to shift. And there is not anyone that I have talked to that has gone through this process that isn't looking at their diet. And I don't mean dieting. I mean what they are putting into their body as nutrients and what works and what doesn't anymore. And that can look like going organic, because the chemicals and the manipulation of the food and the processing of the food, the body says, no more, you cannot do this, and vibrate at a higher frequency.
Right. And your body is going to tell you.
Oh, yes, it is. Drink. Most people that I know have either given up alcohol completely, gone to water, they've given up soft drinks, sugary things. Because alcohol is a low vibration and it does not sit well in a high vibrational body. Now, I'm not saying you cannot drink by any means, it's your choice. But what I have found is that you will be very uncomfortable with the low frequency of the alcohol entering your body when it is vibrating at a higher frequency.
Yes, I would agree with that.
That has been my experience. People and relationships. So there's changes in those desires of who we want around us and what relationships look like, who we're willing to spend time with, who we're not willing to spend time with. And all of those things are going to come up during this integration process. And it will feel like your life is crumbling around you because what wasn't working is crumbling around you. And we have to let it go. This is that letting go piece. In order to have the new come in. So
right,
that
you have to have room for it.
You got to have room for it. So there's that integration phase of, all right, I'm releasing what isn't working, what doesn't feel in alignment, and so that there's new space, more space for new things to come in. So as you're dealing with symptoms, it's very important not to attach to the symptoms and run to the doctor because, oh my God, now I have all these issues. It's far more important, and I'm not saying don't go to doctors. I'm saying recognize you are going through changes, energetic, physical changes, and that is going to feel different to you. And you need to be in touch with your body. And what do I need? What doesn't feel good? What did I just put into it? What am I thinking? What am I feeling that is not resonating, and there is some disharmony within me? And recognizing that first and foremost, rather than trying to medicate or assume something's wrong. So sleep and I have never really been on good speaking terms for a good deal of my life. Sleep has been a struggle for me, and I used to like really rebel against it, especially before my waking up process. I took Benadryl every night. And I took Benadryl because it's non-habit forming, and I thought it was probably the least,
of all the evils.
Of all the evils. I never went on prescription sleep aids, but I realized at one point that if I'm going to shift who I am and where I'm going in the world, that I could not continue to be on that kind of medication, and I had to work through it. So I started researching healthy ways, essential oils to diffuse, crystals to put in my pillow, and I went to a natural sleep aid, which is just herbs. And I did that for a while. And then one day, through another phase, another cycle of the ascension process, my guide said, you need to get off of everything. Stop taking anything. Now, I was only taking an herbal supplement, with valerian and stuff in it, right? It seemed very harmless. But they told me I had to stop. I had to stop relying on something, and that if I might have a few nights of a difficult time, but I needed to trust that my body would work through it. And it has, and I haven't taken anything in years now. It's been a long time since I took anything. And I find, sometimes occasionally I'd be like, okay, I haven't slept in 4 days. I have got to take something, and I'll be like, I'm going to break down and take a Benadryl. One will be fine in a year. It'll be fine. And I'll fall asleep, but my sleep will be so bizarre, and my body's like, no,
not worth it.
Not do that, right?
Stop.
So the point of that saying is, as we're shifting and changing, we have to approach things differently. We can't use the same old modalities and paradigms of things that are going on. We have to look at it through a different lens. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. The other thing that I'm going to say, which I don't know if you were going to get to or not, is spicy words. We have somebody that we follow on social media, and her coined phrase is, watch out for the spicy words. But as you're going through this process and you don't essentially know what's happening, some of those things come up, and you might be very reactive and very on edge, I guess is a good way to say it. So you want to be careful of those things as well, and pay attention. And kind of like we said in our last podcast, like communication, tell people what you're going through, that you're kind of going through this process. It's the same as working on yourself. Like, it's still an ascension. You're still doing something. You're still recognizing it. It still is a process. So, don't leave everybody in your family in the dark and start screaming at them because you didn't sleep for
4 days.
Right, for 4 days. So it's a good thing through this process too to say, hey, look, you might notice some things. You don't have to apologize. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying make people aware that you're having this happening. Going on.
I think that's good. And I would say the answer to that is always question and pause, or pause and question. What's happening? What's going on? Take a step, take a beat, put a pin in it, whatever phrase you want to use. Learn to recognize, because that's the awareness. You know how to recognize, okay, something's going on here, and I need to figure out how I want to respond versus react. And pause is huge, I think. So there is a pause in integration, but it isn't the kind of pause you think it is. It's pause in your immediate responses. your immediate reactions, pause in the behaviors, the patterns and conditioning, and wait. How do I actually want to move through this conversation, this issue, this conflict, whatever it is?
Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Another symptom of not physical or whatever, but another part of integration is letting things go. And you hear this a lot. We hear it a lot. What does that mean? And I want to talk about that because I think nobody talks about what does it mean to let go? How do you just let go?
How do you do it?
How do you let go of an intangible thing? How do you let go of something that you can't physically let go of? What that means is, and I think this is really important, the things that we hold on to create a sense of resistance within us, right? Or argument. Are you arguing? Are you fighting for it?
Or against it.
Or against it, right? Are you fighting for it or against it? And are you holding on to it? Is it become an excuse?
Right.
Is there resistance of some kind? That is the letting go piece that we talk about, right? So, okay, let's say there was a trauma in the past and it has been used as an excuse for a behavior, a conditioned behavior for your whole life. When we say you need to let go of that, it is you need to let go of the story of the trauma. It happened and move on, right? Yes. It does not have to define who you are and what you do and how you move through the world unless you choose it to. So the letting go is choosing to allow something else, you getting to define yourself in a different way versus I'm a victim, I'm a survivor, I am an empowered person. There's a big energetic difference between I'm a victim and I've survived versus I'm empowered with skills and knowledge to do X, Y, Z. So I think that letting go piece, because the mind wants it to make sense.
And it wants to justify.
That's
a big part of that too, because we were taught that those trials and tribulations that you've been through are like badges of honor.
Oh, yes,
that
they made you who you are.
You have to tell the world that I had XYZ happen to me and I overcame it. And here's my badge of courage. And look how good I am now. No.
But if you have to be defined by the trauma, is that who you want to be? And if it is, great. You can stop listening.
We'll catch you all on another one, maybe.
But most people don't want to have that energy. If you truly dig deep down, do you really want to be the victim? Because as long as that story, past thing, whatever you're holding on to, as long as that is holding you, it defines you. Is that who you want to be? And I think if you really, really thought about it, no, you wouldn't.
No.
We don't want to be that. We want to be free. We want to be full of love. We want to be full of joy. We want to feel accomplished and purposeful in life. And none of those things are defined by survival.
No, because it's limiting. I think that's limiting too. When you just said free, like if I have to tell you this story, then you're getting an opinion of me based on this story instead of just looking at me as I am and saying, oh yeah, you're pretty cool just as you are, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think that's a big deal too.
It is. So letting go is a huge piece of the integration balance process. And I think we've at least defined what does that mean.
Yeah.
Hopefully you all feel that we have
I think so. I
covered
think
what that looks like.
Recognizing it is one of those first steps to letting it go too, along with, like you explained it very well, but recognition is a part of it. Like, oh, I do have this pattern. And now that I've recognized it, I can go through those steps and release it.
Right. And we do live in a conditioned world. Who wants to know? Are you married? How many children you have? What do they do for a living?
Did you go to school?
Yeah. Right. I never have those conversations with people because I will not be defined by what someone's judgment or opinion is of that. And so for me, that was part of the integration process. How do I stop being defined by XYZ? And I don't answer those questions, or I don't put myself in that situation anymore. And how you go about that is totally up to you. But there's a letting go of that old way of thinking, being, doing, that allows you the freedom to be who you want to be versus how society has defined you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And the last thing I want to say is you are in sort of this feels like drowning in this state of, I don't know, and a loss of control. And that I can feel the resistance coming through the airwaves right now. Like what integration looks like is a loss of control. Because the fact of the matter is, we don't have control over what's to come. We only have control over where we are in the moment.
Right now.
Right now.
Here, right now.
Yeah. So there is this kind of state of, I don't know. I don't know who I was. I don't know who I'm about to be. I'm not really sure who I am in this moment. And that is probably the most uncomfortable place that people find themselves. The ones people like, I just need some answers. And hey, I get it. I do. I get it. I really, really get it. The not knowing when you are an independent person who is a doer or likes things just so, it is a challenging place to be.
Yes, it is.
And there's no escaping it.
No, there's
You
not.
cannot, let me, and hear me clearly, you cannot make it to the next phase in the state of, I need to know.
No.
And I have to control. You will not get any further. Period.
No.
Write it
No.
down. You will not get any further if you're clinging to the idea that I need to control. So this is something we have to let go of, right?
Yes.
Let go of the needing to control. And I get that feels really scary.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing I can tell you. And I may have talked about this before. I don't know. When you finally release and think of yourself floating in a black pool, you cannot see the bottom, there are no edges, and you're in this, I don't know, I call it the giant black question mark, and it's black water and you can see nothing. It's dark outside, there's nothing, right? Nothing around you. When you finally release the need to control and you lay back and you float, that is what freedom actually feels like.
Yes.
That's when you know freedom.
Yes. You have embraced the unknown.
You've surrendered. Yeah, surrendered and embraced. And that's probably another phase of that, like that overlaps between integration and ascension is surrender.
Yes.
Which is a triggering word for people. And I get it, especially if you're a woman. Surrender does not feel good.
Correct.
But letting go and surrender are synonymous.
Yes. Very close.
So the third stage is ascension. Yay. So now you've reached like the exhale. You've been waiting to exhale, and now you can exhale. And the overlap is you're still in the I don't know. There's not a suddenly. You don't hit ascension and no.
No, it does not work that way.
No, we're still in I don't know, and we're okay.
Yes.
With not knowing.
Yes.
So that's when you've hit that, all right, I don't know, and I'm okay with not knowing, then you know you have moved into the next phase. There is an ease and a flow to life. You're not struggling, grasping, controlling, trying to hang on to anything. You're just like, yeah, I don't know. It'll be fine. It'll all be fine. Which brings me to trust. There is a sense of trust in something greater than ourselves, that what is meant to be will be, what is meant for us we will receive, what is not meant for us will go, and there's no resistance to that state of being.
No, because it doesn't matter.
Right. So we're in this lack of resistance too, right?
Yes.
And then my favorite part about that place is there are infinite possibilities. Because we're not trying to control it or know what's going to happen. That means there are infinite possibilities and the freedom to pluck whichever thread happens to interest you.
Right.
Because
Whatever
many
you
will
want.
arise.
Yes.
So that final piece feels like a sigh, like an exhale, like, okay, it's all fine. It isn't a state of, well, it can be a state of bliss if you
Sure.
feel blissful in that state. But I think that people have this idea there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow I'm trying to get to. But that pot of gold is going to look different for everyone.
Correct.
Right? What does that look like? Does that mean I'm finally not struggling and I'm just chill with life? Does it mean ease? Does it mean freedom? Does it mean peace? What does it mean? And it's going to be different. So there isn't a particular thing. And also, it's not going to stay in this way. So my points about this process are the stages are not necessarily equal. So you could be in the awake awareness stage for a decade. And you could be in integration for 5 years. And with bits of ascension sprinkled in. And then ascension could be like a week.
Right.
Or
it could go
vice versa.
Right. The total opposite. There is no time frame for any of these.
Right.
And the more fun thing is, it all repeats.
Right. So there is the stages are not like any particular thing. You think about when you're growing up, when you're a child and your child starts to talk. Well, every child starts to talk at a different age, and how coherent they are is different, right? How long does it take them to make an intelligent conversation that somebody who isn't their parent can understand, right? It's different. And then when do they walk? And that's different. And some children crawl first and then they walk, and some go straight to running, and you know, it's different. So it's important to understand that the stages of ascension are also different. They fluctuate. They will last, maybe the overlap is a little bit longer than you think. The point is there's no set time frame. So waiting for it to be over, which we hear a lot. When's this part going to be over? Because I'm ready for the next phase. People say that. If you were ready for the next phase, you'd be in the next phase.
Correct.
So if you're not in the next phase, you're not ready for it. There's something you're not doing fully in that phase. You're either not completely aware of what you need to change. You're not letting it go. You're demanding to know. Or in the ascension phase, if you're stuck there, because this is important too, you're not continuing to grow.
Correct.
Yeah. So they're not equal. The length of of time depends on you. Completely depends on you and your soul contract and what you came to learn and at what pace. So there is no growth rate or rate of growth that is better than another. There is no comparison here. None. 0, 0, 0. So if somebody else seems to be in their ascension phase, there's no need for jealousy, because trust me, they're coming back around.
Yes.
So my last point is we will go through them again and again and again.
Yeah.
None of these stages are permanent. Hear me. None of these stages are permanent. We will cycle through them over and over again. I've been through these stages many times. I have hit that place where it's like, okay, yep, it's cool, whatever. I happen to be in one of those phases at the moment, and I also know this is going to be a particularly short one. Because I can feel something coming.
Yeah.
And I think before that can arrive, there's something I need to be aware of that I need to work through and integrate again.
Yeah.
And so it's important to, I hope this was helpful, to understand it's a process. It's ever evolving. It does evolve. So let's say the first stage lasts you a few years of like, I'm dissatisfied. I know something needs to change, but I haven't quite figured it out. And, but the next time you go through that phase of, I know something isn't quite right, it may take you a month.
Right.
It may not be 5 years. It may be a week. I mean, we can go through these. I've gone through these phases actually in a really short period of time before. Like over a couple of days, I would be triggered by something. I would be like, okay, I've got to do something about this. I would go through the integration and then find peace immediately.
Right.
So not only is it these phases, these stages, but we can also go through these stages over one single issue.
Correct. Yes, that's very true.
Yeah. And it's cyclical. Like I always say, there's an ascending spiral. We are coming back around and around and around. And I think this hopefully illustrates what I mean by that.
Yeah, I would think so.
There, that was a big, I feel like this was huge information and not necessarily new information, but put together in a way that helps you understand what this freaking journey is about. So, because I think if you can pan out, right, and look at this from this bird's eye view, oh, we're in stages and we're going through these things, it allows us to let go a lot easier.
It does.
The resistance decreases, yes, and the fighting against it decreases. And if you catch yourself saying, when is this going to be over? Recognize you have just solidified your time in whatever phase you're in.
Correct. I'm still here.
Right? I'm still here. I'm not going to get out of it until I let go of this idea or holding on to this idea that I need to be in the next phase. Because that's just conditioning and programming, right, that we need to be moving forward. But yeah, but there's no time on that.
There isn't. And the only other point that I would like to make with this is, as you said, it looks different for everybody. And it's not your job to put everybody in these phases like, oh, I see this, you need to release that so you can get to the next phase, so you can do this. Yeah. Like, that's not your job either.
Stay in your own sandbox.
Exactly. Exactly. And just by you going through these phases, you will be the light that shines to other people that say, okay, yeah, I can see you're going through this. That's fine. They might ask questions, and that's fine too, but it's not your job to say, all right, you got to let go of this so you can move to this so you can do that. That's not part of it either.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's hard, right? That's challenging, especially if you're in a relationship with someone and your partner is not getting the signs and you're steps ahead, or you've like gone through the process and you can see it so clearly for someone else.
Right.
That's not your job.
No.
It's not your responsibility. And it's actually none of your business. It's actually also harmful, I would say, because when you're interfering in someone else's growth process, they're not getting the information they need in their own way, in their own time. And people have to be given the grace and space to do it how they're going to do it. Nobody's sitting around telling you how to do it.
Right.
So it's not your place to do it to someone else. Unless you're asked, hey, I noticed you're really growing, right, and you've like seemed to have managed to make it out of this, place, and how did you do it? And then you can share your experience, but not tell them what they need to do or should do.
No, and the flip side to that is, if you are struggling, you can always ask for help. There's lots of people out there.
Yes.
We're around.
Yes.
All these kinds of things. Like,
definitely.
There's definitely help available for you as well.
Yeah. We both are obviously pretty, I would say we are skilled in this area of understanding the process and moving through it and what that looks like. And we're very real about it. Both of us are very real about it. Obviously, we wouldn't be talking about these things on a podcast. I think that's important to be real about, man, sometimes this is hard and it sucks and it's lonely. And, we have each other and mentors that we talk to help us, support us through this process. And I will also mention, I'm going to do a plug here. I just released an online course called Ever Awakening, which helps you move through really the awake awareness and integration phase so that you can move into that ascension phase really beautifully. It helps you deal with a lot of things that you may not know how to deal with or have dealt with on some level, but can go deeper. And The course is online. It's amazing. Everything is downloadable. You have it for life. It's really affordable. It's called Ever Awakening Journey. You can find it on my website at www.everawakening.com under courses. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always reach out and talk to us as well. Both of us also do long distance. Yes. You do not have to be local to work with us. So if you are in need, don't suffer. Suffering is a choice.
Yes.
And it's really important to know suffering is a choice. And if you are not enjoying it, if you are not enjoying life and you're suffering, make a different choice.
Exactly.
So thank you for joining us on this special edition. We will be back next week to talk about, I believe it's forgiveness, forgiving ourselves and others, which also may seem like a really simple topic.
It's not.
It's not. And I think we've got some tips and pointers and things to help shift your perspective on things, to help you move through that piece of the being authentic. Thank you for joining us. Until next week, in peace and love and light, this is Marnie.
And much love and appreciation, this is Natalie.